God damn it, come on.
Como se llama? You said agua. What's your name? Como se llama?
All right, I'd like to welcome everyone tonight to the College of Complexes. My name is Tim. I'll be moderating tonight. And the College of Complexes consists of the following format. First, we'll have a brief announcements period, followed by a infamous, our speaker will then speak up to about an hour. We'll then have questions and answers, along with our infamous rebuttal period. My name is Tim, and I'll be your host tonight. There's two rules to the college. The first one is no personal attacks, and the second is one fool at a time. I do have hand-printed schedules for those in person. All right, Charlie, if you're ready for the announcements, let's get started.
All right, welcome everyone to meeting number 3,805 of the College of Complexes, the playground for people who think. If you're not on one of our email lists, please visit the main page of the website of the college or contact me and I'll see that you get on it. Okay, although I'm not a capitalist, I will give an advertisement for our upcoming programs. Our President's Day program on February the 22nd will be by Eric Mao, political analyst, who will determine that is there a national character for the United States. Always interesting. On March the 1st, Tim Bolger will be taking a look at developments regarding AI, artificial intelligence. Is it manipulating us or fostering creativity? On March the 8th, we're going to have a movie discussion. There's a link at the website for the program. You should watch the movie in advance. It's free and online. Salt of the Earth is the name of the movie. Jonathan Barton will lead a discussion of it. Considered the most dangerous movie ever made in the United States. On March the 15th, Reverend George, the Peace Pentagon Church, will be talking about her efforts to create a mother movement to bring an end to war, March 15th. March 22nd, we're going to have an open mic. We've got 3 keynote speakers on what you think you should do today to improve the world. On March 29th, Eric Mao will be returning to take a look at the wealth of the world. Where and how much is the earth worth and who owns it? That leaves 3 days open in April, 5, 12, 26. If you'd like to speak, contact me. On April the 19th, in conjunction with Earth Day, I'll be doing a little survey and quiz. Everyone can take simple 15 questions we'll discuss to determine is how green is are your politics? How green are you? Okay, that's it. 7 upcoming programs. Take it away, Tim.
All right, are there any other announcements tonight?
I have an announcement.
Go ahead.
At noon on Monday, there'll be a protest against Trump's policies. And then there'll be a march to Trump Tower. That's at noon on Monday at Federal Plaza at Dearborn and Jackson. It starts at noon. Thank you.
All right, and I don't have any announcements. Dan, are you ready? All right, let's welcome Daniel Weinberg tonight with his presentation. Let's hear it for Dan.
So I'm going to talk about sugar and soil in a short time. This is a very, very good book, Fat Chance by Robert Lustig, Lustig. He wrote about eating sugar and how dangerous it is for people. So let me read a little bit. First of all, let me say that 11.6% of the United States has diabetes. Now, that's a large percentage. I'm sure some people in this room have diabetes. And if not, then they might be getting it soon. So it might be called an epidemic if you look at it closely. And children, teens, and young adults are getting more and more diabetes as we speak. As far as the history of sugar, there was a Dr. Ansel Keys. He invented the K ration in World War II. And he did a study of disease, and he found that fat and sugar were the problem. Yet he threw out the sugar and stayed with the fat. So fat was thrown out of foods, and now nobody eats fat, but when fat is deleted from food, the taste is gone. So you have to add sugar to make it taste palatable to people. And sugar cannot be metabolized by the liver very well. There are two kinds of sugar. There's glucose and fructose. Glucose and fructose are both single atom molecules, and sucrose is a combination of fructose and glucose. So the liver metabolizes sugar, and fructose cannot be metabolized by the liver. So it needs fiber. The USDA does not classify fiber as an essential nutrient. Most people consider fiber a waste product. However, fiber is necessary to be metabolized. The budget of the USDA is $200 billion. This is for corn and soybean price supports. This is for SNAP, for poor people to get food stamps. And while the military budget is $800 billion, so food is 1/4 of the military budget. Pretty important. There's a myth that exercise can get rid of fat, and that's not really true. I mean, if you keep eating bad food, and if you keep eating Coca-Cola and orange juice and all that stuff, Pepsi, you're not going to get skinny. You're not going to lose weight even if you exercise. I know when I quit sugar, and about 5 years ago, March will be 5 years, I quit eating added sugar. I didn't eat any more sweet rolls. I quit eating candy and cake and cookies and muffins and all that stuff. And so that was 5 years ago. And in the 5 years since, I felt a lot better. I feel my brain is a lot clearer. I can exercise more. And even though I have Parkinson's, which some people right here, there's a study from PubMed, the National Library of Medicine website, and it says the association between type 2 diabetes and Parkinson's disease. And another one is anti-diabetic drugs for Alzheimer's and Parkinson's disease, repurposing insulin, metformin, and some other drug. So some doctors obviously think that Alzheimer's and Parkinson's and diabetes are related. And I would say, yes, that's right. Of course, when I went to see my doctor, he said I have neuropathy, death of nerves in my legs. But actually, I have nerves. I have feeling in my legs and my feet, except it's just sort of not so good feeling. And so he gave me a test, a stress test. He shocked me with electricity in my lower leg, not my feet, and my feet, I guess. And I felt it every time. So I don't know where he's coming from. And I showed him these two studies from the National Library of Medicine, and he ignored it. He didn't want to deal with me and my research. So doctors are taught not to doctors are not taught to look at nutrition, at food as a cause of Parkinson's or Alzheimer's or diabetes. They just suggest metformin and other drugs that big pharma want people to take. And this is a problem. So I suggest don't go to your doctor if you have with diabetes. Go somewhere else. Just stop eating added sugar and eat vegetables and fruits. When you go into a supermarket, go on the outside of the supermarket and get the fruits and vegetables, meat, dairy. Usually that's a real food. It's real food, not fake food in the processed food with a lot of sugar in it. There are about 70 names for sugar. I could read them all. Agave juice, agave nectar. Agave is a cactus that they get sugar from. Beet sugar, brown rice syrup, brown sugar, cane juice, cane sugar, cane syrup, coconut sugar, corn syrup, corn solids, dextrose, ethyl malted, Florida crystals, fructose, fruit juice concentrate. Talking about fruit juice is not as healthy as the real fruit because when they make fruit juice, they destroy the fiber. Fiber is what mitigates nutrition, digestion. As the food is digested in the liver, if you don't if you don't have fiber, then it goes straight into the liver and makes it fat. While if you eat an orange or an apple, the sugar will be mitigated by the fiber, and it'll be added to the liver slowly. Because by the time you eat, it takes 24 to 48 hours for something you eat until it goes out of you. So, you know, there's a lot of things going on in your stomach that are digesting. There's over 10 billion bacteria in your stomach, while your cells are but like 100 million cells in the whole body. So there's more live things in your stomach than cells in your whole body. I have a lot of facts today, don't I? So other names of sugar are malt syrup, maltodextrin, maltose, maple sugar, maple syrup, molasses, vanilla sugar, powdered sugar, raw sugar, rice syrup, sugar beets, unrefined sugar, yellow sugar. Cavemen did not have bad teeth. They didn't eat sugar. Only civilized people have bad teeth because they eat a lot of sugar. I ate a lot of sugar when I was a kid. I'll also be talking about a little bit about climate. So 2024 was Chicago's warmest year in history, in the last 200 years, maybe. So it was up to 55 degrees, which is 3.8 degrees above normal. Another quote is, sugar is now the most ubiquitous foodstuff worldwide and has been added to virtually every processed food, limiting consumer choice and the ability to avoid it. Approximately 80% of the 6 million consumer packaged foods in the United States have added caloric sweeteners. That's from Robert Lustig. And he also says sugar is not dangerous because of its calories or because it makes you fat. Sugar is dangerous because it is sugar. It is not nutrition. When consumed in excess, it's a toxin and it's addictive. So he's saying that it's poison. Sugar is poison. And I agree. I think that's right. So processed food didn't start being made until the 70s, 1970s. And before that, everything was natural. There was no high fructose corn syrup or anything like that until the 70s. And this is fairly recent, last 50 years. So how many people add sugar to their salad or their salt or their soup? Do you add sugar to your salad or soup?
No.
No? Why not? I mean, you add salt. Probably would taste pretty good if you add sugar. No, but of course we don't normally add sugar because it's not healthy. Now you walk into a Walgreens or CVS and you see sugar advertised, sugar candy all over the front of the store. And it's a conspiracy to make people sick, I think. It's part of the big ag and big pharma conspiracy to make people sick again. Of course, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. says he wants to make people healthy again, but I'm not sure if that'll happen. Maybe it will. We can hope for the best. So, as I was saying, the doctor who wrote this was an internationally renowned pediatric endocrinologist who spent the last 16 years treating childhood obesity and studying the effects of sugar on the central nervous system, metabolism, and disease. He is the director of the weight assessment for teen and child health program at the University of California, San Francisco Children's Hospital, and a member of the UCSF Center for Obesity Association and Study and Treatment, as well as a member of the Obesity Task Force of the Endocrine Society. So 11% of the people in the United States have diabetes. This includes skinny people and fat people. 12.4% of China people have diabetes. 9.6% of India people have diabetes. So it's common all over the world because they're eating American diets. And that's not right. I'd say it's an epidemic.
Pandemic.
Would you like to come up here and tell about your sugar now? Okay, thank you.
You must have.
Now it's on. Oh. When Dan started reading the different names for sugar, it made me think, I read the labels of everything I eat, mostly, not totally, but sometimes I can't even read them, they're so small. But the labels are required that they put the most the ingredient that there's most of in whatever it is you're eating. And they'll sometimes list sugar as the third ingredient. But later on, as you go down and finish reading, one of these other 72 names for sugar is going to be on there. And you don't know how much sugar is in what you're eating. It turns out that 1 can of Coke contains 9 teaspoons of sugar. 1 can of Coke contains 9 teaspoons of sugar. And this fact is what caused obesity, probably in my generation and the generation that followed it. So I wanted to tell you about my family, and oh, now it's on. Yeah, okay. I wanted to tell you about my family. My father and his brother both had diabetes. His brother handled his diabetes by stopping eating sugar. He quit eating sugar altogether because he didn't have enough insulin to metabolize it. My father, on the other hand, ate anything he wanted, and he actually drank too much. My father died when he was about 75 years old, and his brother lived nearly to 100. And to me, this is a really good example of a family weakness for diabetes, and one way of handling it versus another way of handling it. My father took insulin every day, at least once, and he would go into insulin shock. And when he went into insulin shock, we had to give him glasses of orange juice to bring him out of the insulin shock because his body was so badly regulated. There was no way that his body was regulated for the amount of sugar that was in it or the amount of insulin that he took that day. And it was just a crapshoot as to what was happening to him. So I wanted to tell you that about my family, and then I ran into a friend the other day who has an illness called polycystic ovaries or ovarian polycystic something or other. Anyway, she gets cysts on her ovaries. So I looked this up. I went and Googled polycystic ovarian disease, and it turns out that that disease is related to sugar intake, and it's related to the diseases that Daniel just talked about, Alzheimer's and diabetes 1, 2, and 3, or whatever they are. I don't know how to tell you the difference between diabetes 1, diabetes 2, and diabetes 3. If a child has diabetes early, that's diabetes 1, isn't it? And then what? And then, well, yeah, but sometimes they just are really short on insulin. Yeah. So anyway, so I wanted to tell you about my experience with sugar. When I was a kid, like with Daniel, I would eat a candy bar. I would eat a whole Snickers bar, or I would eat a whole Mounds, or whatever it is, that. And I look at that and I think about myself eating a whole Snickers bar, and I can't believe it was possible because I couldn't do that now. But so I grew up as a kid eating quite a bit of sugar, but I was very conscious of my diet even as a child. And so there was a point at which I quit eating white bread, and there was a point at which I quit eating peeled potatoes. I always demanded that the skin be left on the potatoes when I was eating them and things like that. So I did become pretty conscious of my diet. But when I was about 30, I picked up this book called Sugar Blues, and it was written by Gloria Swanson's boyfriend. And he had been in France during World War II, or maybe it was one. I think I can't tell you. It might have been World War I. I'm not sure, but anyway, he was foraging out in the fields when he was a soldier in France, and he found out when he was doing that he felt a lot better than he'd ever felt in his life when he was going out in the woods and looking for food and eating what he could find, and he was amazed by this. And so when he got back to the States, he started feeling lousy again, and he realized that his problem had been eating sugar. So he wrote an entire book about sugar and the effect that it had on him and the effect that it had on the people around him. And you can see it every day walking down the street, the people who are hooked on sugar. Now, I personally am very, very addicted to sugar. And, I've resisted eating it, and I've resisted putting it into things. And I really go very, very, very slow. It takes me 2 days to eat a cookie or something like that. I really go slow on it. But I find that if I completely cut out sugar, I lose my craving for food. Otherwise, I'm just half starved all the time. I always want to eat over and over and over. And if I go without sugar for 4 or 5 days, then that craving is under control. But that to me is what I call a sugar illness. If you eat sugar and the next day you're just starving all day long, no matter how much you eat, that craving is caused by addiction to sugar. And I definitely have this problem. Okay, so when I was 30, I quit eating sugar for about 3 years. I read everything. I read every single label of everything I ate. I ate no desserts. I ate nothing that was sweet. And at the end of the 3 years, I thought, wow, I've really been a good girl and I'm just going to have a malt. So I had a milkshake or a malt or something. And the next day, I had the worst hangover I've ever had. It was, I just couldn't move. I was really sick. And that taught me, how the effect that sugar has on me, that I have a real problem with trying to metabolize and use sugar. And I figure that it runs in my family because both my father and his brother, my father was born in 1899, so he wasn't, and he was raised on a ranch. So neither one of the boys had this big problem with sugar when they were young. And, but they both did get diabetes pretty fast. And so I figured that diabetes runs in my family, and the allergy to sugar runs in my family. And so I really have to watch it. But I see other people who crave food 24/7. And I think, you should try it. Try going without sugar for 2 weeks and see how different you feel. And because that's what I did, and I felt completely different. My relationship to food changed totally. So that's my experience, and I appreciate that you listen to me. Thank you.
Okay.
What? What?
Where's our speaker?
He's coming.
I'm speaking. So yeah, I say to everybody on this call, on Zoom and not on Zoom, try going without added sugar, like no Coca-Cola, no candy, no cake, no cookies for 4 days or 2 days and just see what happens. I know it, hello? People drink Coca-Cola because they want to be a good American. If you're, it's true. I know Coke is like American is apple pie, except apple pie and Coke make you sick. I mean, Coke is. It was hard for me to stop drinking Coca-Cola. I mean, I love Coke. Oh, it's so great. Red can and swirl and all that garbage. Verga Hargit. You know what that means? Anyways, I Coke is poison. I mean, Lustig in the book says Coke is poison. And I mean, he's an American. He's a doctor, endocrinologist, but he's a radical, I guess, because he says Coke is poison. Yeah, you clean chrome with it. I've heard that. That is high fructose corn syrup. Between what?
High fructose corn syrup and sugar.
It is. High fructose corn syrup is, I mean, all right, let's talk about. Right. Right. You're right. It's called sucrose. That's a combination. But what was I going to say? Fructose, glucose, sugar, Coke. Coke is good to clean stuff. Yeah. But high fructose corn syrup is fructose, and fructose can't be metabolized by the liver. And I didn't say this before. I'm not a doctor, but I am giving my opinion on health matters because I'm a smart American citizen.
You're telling us how to do about our health?
Did you? Well, you know, Charlie, everybody who comes here tells me, you know, Trump is good, Trump is bad, Biden is good. How can they give their opinion? They're just opinions of citizens, good citizens. And that's what I am. I'm a good citizen of America.
Let me,
And-
let me remind everybody that it's the speaker's time. We'll have plenty of time to rebut and ask questions at the end of the rebuttal.
Right. So let's go on to soil. Soil is very interesting thing. I mean, everybody gets buried in soil and all that. So what did Wendell Berry say about soil? He said, the soil is the great connector of our lives, the source and destination of all. So everybody from dust to dust, you're buried in soil. Actually, people were buried without boxes for a long time. I don't know where they got these box business. Probably a box capitalist wanted to bury people, so he got, hey, I'll give you a box. You want a box? I'll give you a box. Sell you a box. Yeah. Can't you make your own box? What if you got some wood? Do it yourself. DIY. Do it yourself. Okay, Thomas Jefferson, you know who he was. He said, cultivators of the earth are the most valuable citizens. They are the most vigorous, the most independent, the most virtuous, and they are tied to their country and wedded to its liberty and interest by the most lasting bonds. He said things about soil, but I couldn't find any. And George Washington, the first president, he said, the nation that destroys its soil destroys itself. You can't have a healthy civilization without healthy soil. You can't have junk food. I don't know if he said that. Junk food and have healthy people. Strangely enough, they have a mind to till the soil, and the love of possessions is a disease in them. So Washington has a good point. Tilling the soil, plowing, is a part of climate change. Is part of carbon dioxide going in the air. When farmers plow, all they're doing is digging up the soil, and they're killing all the microbes. They're killing all the little bacteria and fungi that live in the soil that make it soil. Without those microbes, without the fungi and bacteria, it isn't soil. It's dead. It's like nothing. So when a farmer adds bags of nitrogen and NPK, nitrogen, potassium, and phosphorus to the soil, he's adding fake microbes, and they don't quite work. So all it does when the farmer puts NPK into the soil, it dries out the soil and it kills all the microbes. And then when it rains, all that nitrogen goes down the Mississippi River into a dead zone at the bottom of New Orleans every summer. And I have a picture of the dead zone. It's like a little worm at the bottom of the Mississippi River by New Orleans, and it's like 6,000 square miles. So Chicago is 200 square miles. So it's 30 times the size of Chicago every summer, right by New Orleans. And that's a crime. And that should be blamed to Dow Chemical and DuPont Chemical and Archer Daniels Midland and Cargill. They should be sued by the EPA for making all that dead zone by New Orleans. And I want you to get on that, Mike, and start sue DuPont and Dow Chemical. Thank you. Well, Musk is getting rid of the EPA, so you know, DuPont and Dow will be doing fine. they're not going to get sued at all. Maybe they'll get sued. So Matt Powers, Matt Powers is a teacher, soil teacher online. Very good. He's teaching regenerative soil, and regenerative soil microscopy, teaching soil with microscopes. So you all should join that group and learn something. Learn about soil. Because you're going to end up in soil anyways. So sooner or later, and that's not funny. It's very serious. So what can we do? How can we write letters to Senator Durbin and our state representatives saying, you know, quit the NPK, dump it, and just do natural farming? Yes, of course we can. But the other thing you can do is go to farmers markets, support your local farmer. And if you have a garden, you can always use leaves to feed the soil. You don't have to buy 10-10-10 or any fertilizer or green stuff that's in a bottle. You can use leaves. Leaves are nitrogen and carbon, and dead leaves are mostly carbon and some nitrogen. So they make the soil, they make soil. That's what soil is. Soil is sand, silt, and clay, as you probably know from third grade. I wasn't paying attention too much. I had other things on my mind. But sand, silt, and clay, and 25% air, 25% water. So if you have healthy soil, it'll hold the water and it'll hold air to feed the microbes, to feed the bacteria, because you want aerobic bacteria usually. Anaerobic is okay too. So like in my garden, I have a small 4x8 foot garden, which is like 0.006 of an acre. And it's not too much. I'm not much of a farmer, but I feed the soil grasses and other stuff and some other stuff. And I hope I keep feeding it until I die. Because it feeds me sometimes with some tomatoes and some herbs. Praise the soil. So soil, supposedly there's only 50 more years left of soil in the world. There's a company called understandingag.com, and they've done work with 30 million acres around the world, around the English-speaking world. And this is good, teaching farmers to get off of bags of chemicals and start using natural food for the soil. It's very happening thing. And farmers markets, yes, they're very expensive. So a farmer's market might charge $15 for a pound of chicken, might be $40 for a pound of lamb, might be $10 or $15 for a pound of chopped hamburger meat. So, I mean, is cancer expensive? Is cancer expensive? Is cancer expensive? Yes, it is. I don't want to get cancer. It's too expensive for me. So I'm going to pay my farmer. Either pay my farmer or pay my doctor. I'd rather pay the farmer. Doctors are rich already. They don't need my stinking money. So there's a way to gosteward.com. I asked my financial advisor if that's a reputable place to invest money. They invest in regenerative agriculture. They loan like $1 million, $2 million, $3 million to these pretty big farms. And then if you invest with them, they give you back 6, 7, 8%. Now, I'm not sure if that's quite kosher. It might be a Bernie Madoff kind of thing. But if it's real, it sounds dynamite. Probably it's not real. Anyways, they do supposedly invest in farms all across the United States of America. Great country. Great country. Sound like Trump. Great country. Great country. So when I quit sugar, nobody in my family had diabetes, as far as I know. Maybe they all had diabetes and they didn't tell me. That's possible. But as far as I know, nobody had diabetes because we had strong things about food. Don't eat too much sugar. Except when I was growing up, I would get a Hostess Ho-Ho, a Mott's apple juice, and a Nestle's Crunch as a snack. So I associated getting healthy or getting sick or both with eating sugar. So I said, I'm going to eat sugar. Yeah. So the next 60 years, I ate sugar. And then I learned my lesson. Learned the sugar industry was all against me. And I was just a pawn in their game. So I feel much better now that I'm not eating sugar. So insulin resistance. What is insulin resistance? It's a misnomer. It's a fake word. I mean, why call it insulin resistance? Why not call it overload of sugar? It's a lot more honest than saying insulin doesn't do its job. Insulin doesn't do its job because there's too much sugar. So why not call too much sugar instead of insulin resistance? So insulin resistance is a fancy way of saying you need fake insulin shot up in your vein every day or else you'll die. So like Jan was saying, her father drank orange juice. I mean, is that crazy or what? I mean, I knew somebody who drank a Coke to get their sugar up. They had diabetes. I mean, people adapt. That's what I say. People adapt to their disease or their situation and do what they can. I mean, they're not going to spend $50 a month on metformin, and it's a lot cheaper to buy a Coke once a day, and that's, well, I guess it's $2 now. It used to be a quarter when I was buying a can of Coke. But or eating a candy bar. Candy bars are $2 or $3 now. So they're as expensive as medicine, but they are medicine, of course. So insulin is made by the pancreas. It's a hormone, and it helps digest sugar. But when there's too much sugar, insulin doesn't work. So the person ODs or has an insulin shock, and they can die from that if they're not taken care of. But this is not a health class. This is politics class. So I'll talk about politics a little bit, the politics of sugar. So of course, politics, the sugar industry donates millions of dollars to Congress every year. Sugar is supported by the USDA or USDA, as Joel Salatin says. So sugar is supported by the government. So the government is creating a market for sugar, for wheat, for corn, for soybeans. The market, market. Oh, where's the market coming from? Where are libertarians today? They're not here. So the market is being created by the government. It's being pushed by the government. The government creates the market. I don't know who, Adam Smith and the invisible hand. You see the hand. It's the hand of government is making the market. And they're giving money to the farmers because the farmers are killing the land and they can't grow anything because they're putting bags of chemicals in the land and it doesn't grow anything. And so they just abandon their farms and move to Chicago and work in a factory or something. I mean, but that's the way it is. I mean, Archer Daniels Midland is on the top of 30th story, the penthouse office in downtown Chicago. They make $100 billion a year. They're in 156 countries. They might as well be a country. Archer Daniels Midland, supermarket to the world. And I'm sure there are, their corporate executives will become the USDA head, probably, or junior USDA executives. That's called politics in America because corporations run America. Like it or leave it. You can love it or leave it. You can leave America or you can love corporations because they're running America, especially now with Musk. And Musk said something about Social Security. He said, this is going to be the end of the democratic reign of government, and people with Social Security are not going to have it anymore. And that's too, they can go, yeah, he did. Yeah. Right. And he doesn't pay Social Security tax only on the first 130,000 of it, right? Yeah, so 130, that's the first 5 minutes of the year. By January 2nd, he's not paying anything. Yeah. Sharpen those guillotines, make them sharp. Or we could all move to Cuba. Now, I don't suggest we'd be rich there, but I mean, Cuba is a nirvana. I mean, maybe they have a cure for Parkinson's in Cuba. You don't know. There's no way to find out except to go there. So I might have to go there and find out if Cuba has the Parkinson's cure. Yeah, they probably do. Right. Yes. I told that story already, Mike. I said, my doctor at Thoric Hospital, will remain nameless, a neurologist said that, I have, well, he said the only neuropathy he knows of is diabetic neuropathy. So of course I have diabetic neuropathy, but I never had diabetes. I never took metformin. I didn't go to doctors too much. Maybe that's why. But so he said, he gave me a stress test and he poked my leg with electric. And I said, ow, a lot. I was saying ow every few seconds when he poked me. So, I mean, and he didn't say anything. So I have to go to my other doctor to get the results. What kind of crap is that? What is this health system in America? It sucks. What, Parkinson's? Yeah. Michael J. Fox? Yes. No, he still has it. And you know, that's a big scam. Michael J. Fox Foundation, he has Parkinson's. He had early onset Parkinson's. I don't know why. But I mean, I wrote to them about third stage Parkinson's, third stage diabetes. Of course, they didn't ever wrote back. But I mean, like in PubMed, like these two studies that I have, they say that it might be connected, Parkinson's and diabetes. So I have another thing I found out in my research, Charlie. You'll like this. So the research committee for the Committee for Economic Development, 1945. There was a report. I printed it all out. And on the committee was the president of the Federal Reserve Bank of Boston and of St. Louis, the vice president of a steel company, president of the Studebaker Car Company in 1945, J.P. Morgan, vice president, Macy's, chairman of the board, Universal CIT Credit, chairman of the board, president of Brown Johnson, whatever that is, care of Chamber of Commerce. And so these are not hobos that not very much. They're the cream of the crop. And they decided that agriculture was being too boring. We got to get rid of family farms. We got to use machines and chemicals, and we'll all be fine. So you know what? That happened. There were 20 million farms in 1930. By the 50s, there were 5 million. Now there are about 2 million farms in America. And this is wrong. We got to have 4 million at least. So everybody here in this room, go start a farm tomorrow. Do it. Just do it. Now farmers are like stupid. They're idiots. All they do is dig in the dirt and stuff. No, they're smart. They know about when to plant. They know what to plant. You know why you plant. And so, for instance, there's soil. Soil. So there are 5 principles of soil. One principle is don't shake too much. That's one principle. Second principle is keep a lot of different species in the soil. A lot of different grasses and things. Always keep a root in the soil. That's another one. Because the soil wants and needs plants in it, or else it'll die. It'll become like a desert. So even in winter, you should have, I have pictures over there of gardens with plants in there, and they're plants. And what is this? February, and it's cold, and there's still plants in there through the snow, and they're surviving because they're tough. It's grass. And what are they doing? They're feeding the soil. They're keeping it alive. And this is 365, 24/7, forever. And of course, we are so used to pictures of the black earth, the black earth, beautiful black earth. You know, for 6 months it's black. What? That's crazy. It erodes. It goes into the river. Gets a river full of stuff, and NPK fills up with river, and it ends up by New Orleans. Yeah, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. They're bags. That's what they use to fertilize the soil. You can buy bags of that stuff if you have a farm, and that's what Dow Chemical, DuPont Chemical, that's what they make. After World War II, there were factories making bombs, right? Nitroglycerin, nitrogen. So they just switched over to making fertilizer, nitrogen. They use the nitrogen for fertilizer. They made ammonia. That's what happened when, what's his name? Somebody blew up the Murrah building in Oklahoma City.
Murrah Federal Building.
Who was it? What's the name of the bomber?
I'm forgetting.
Timothy McVeigh.
Yeah,
Right.
McVeigh.
Right.
Timothy McVeigh.
Tim McVeigh. Yeah, they zapped him a few years ago.
Ammonia nitrate.
Ammoni-
That was fuel oil.
No, it was fertilizer. Ammonium nitrate, it's fertilizer. Any farmer? Huh?
Yes, but you also mix it with the fuel oil and diesel.
And it's bigger explosion? Oh, okay.
Well, it won't explode unless you mix it that in there.
Oh. Okay. Yes. Can you? Okay, go ahead. Go for it. What can you? Go ahead. No, I'm not. Yeah, one more thing. Let me see. These are two classes. Matt Powers, very good teacher at Powers on the internet, if you have that. He's a very good teacher for soil. Okay. All right, I'm done, I guess.
All right, we're gonna let you follow up with,
Applause, please, applause.
did you wanna say anything there? All right, well, we'll let you, then we'll, after this, we'll go to questions and answers. All right, Mike. Comment, go ahead.
About 20 years ago, I took a course at the biological station at the University of Michigan. And we did a tour of lakes in the area. There's many little ponds, big ponds, you know, puddles, whatever. And every single one had a character that you could, if you knew the lakes and you took a piece of the water out of those lakes and put it under a microscope, if you knew, you'd know which lake it came from because every single one was different. And there was one that had nothing alive in it because the farmers around there had been putting, I guess it was NPK on their farms. It had gone into the lake and killed every organism in the lake, and that water was absolutely free of any living thing. And that really impressed me that that the runoff from the farmer's soil had killed that lake, and it was called a dead lake. And then I also went to a Bioneers, not Pioneers, but Bioneers conference in San Rafael, California. And there was a session on sustainable farming. And a couple had gone into a farm in California and they decided to make it sustainable. And they had a friend who knew what to do and he helped them. And they found that you cannot run a sustainable farm without animals. They had cows and horses and pigs and lots of different kinds of fowl. And they ran their farm and they used the droppings from the animals to fertilize their farm. The farm really, really prosperous. And it was gorgeous. They had a lot of pictures of it. And then one year it didn't rain and their duck pond dried up and their ducks were suffering pretty much. But what really happened was because of the drought, some of their crops were infested with snails. And these snails were eating up everything around. And the ducks came by and ate the snail. So that it saved everything, plants. And of course, you know, the ducks are always dropping shit everywhere, which is really good for the soil. And this was one of the most entertaining sessions I've ever been in. And it was a session of the pioneers in California. So soil is life. Oh, you know that song that says, thank you, soil. Thanks a bunch. You are the ones you've made my lunch. And it's a really cute little children's song about soil.
Okay, question time. Dan, when you're ready. All right. All right, Mike, get up here and ask. You're gonna have to come up and ask your
Well, say
question.
it's your brain. It's your brain. It's your brain. So
All right.
in the brain, sucrose, glucose, fructose do the same thing to the brain that heroin and cocaine do. They activate the dopamine, and the neurotransmitter goes quicker, so it excites you, and if you feel good when you eat sugar. But it doesn't activate, the fructose does not activate ghrelin. Ghrelin is something that is the satiety, the food when you feel full. When you feel full, your ghrelin is working, but fructose turns that off. So you just eat more and more and more. So you usually get fat when you have diabetes. But not everybody gets heavy when they have diabetes. Anyways, it turns off part of the brain, basically.
All right, Mike, come on up. Well, yell up then. Yell them out then, Mike. Hang on.
I'll yell.
Yeah, you can
Okay,
stay right there.
So my understanding is that there's lots of things that turn
Louder, Mike.
food into sugar.
We can't hear this. Tell them to use the microphone.
Use the microphone, Mike.
Say Zoom.
Because we got,
Because Charlie don't.
no, because we got,
All
15 people right now watching. 13 of them.
Wow, we got more people on Zoom than
Yeah,
here.
that's correct. And then we're using it, and then we're using the technology well. So please
I
just
hate
state your question.
technology. All right, so my question is basically around sugar. Oh, there's a lot of things to talk. There's a lot of things to talk about. I mean, how about margarine and then hydrogenated foods and things like that. But anyway, so my understanding what gets people fat is that they eat breads or desserts that are loaded with sugar, and then your Cokes and your different drinks and your garbage drinks like what's the junk they sell? The caffeine monster crap and all that stuff. That's all sugar, right? So, but my understanding is that anyway. So all this product here is sugar related, or it turns into sugar. Like even I've gotten off of pasta and pizza, and I'm part Italian. I really like pasta and pizza. Russ just had a big honking plate of pasta. That's gonna all turn to sugar, right? It is. So, what's the biggest things that turns it into sugar? Pasta, pizza, breads, sugar itself, glucose, potatoes, right? All even wheat and even whole grain.
If you use true whole grain, when they say it's whole grain bread and it costs $2, I don't know about that. So when it says whole grain and it's $10.
All right, come on up and use the mic.
Explain the food chain.
I'm not a doctor, but I'll try. I'll do my best. Okay, so the food, food goes into your mouth, down your esophagus, into your stomach. And it doesn't get changed into sugar, or does it? It gets changed into sugar? I don't. Is sugar? Right. So it changes into,
All right,
right, okay. So it
Repeat what you
changes
just
into
said.
starch. So it changes into starch. Start, well, I mean, like, if you eat barley soup, barley soup will go into your mouth. And there is, I mean, there's nuts, walnuts, peanuts, there's a little bit of sugar in them. There's sugar in carrots. There's sugar in wheat, whole wheat, corn, rye, barley, all that stuff.
oranges.
Oranges, right, oranges. But the thing with oranges, you get fiber. So it helps the digestion. It's not pure fructose. Fructose, when you're drinking Coke, a Coke is pure fructose. That is not metabolized. That is not. So, I mean, you eat sugar. You're eating sugar. You're either eating good sugar or you're eating bad sugar. Fructose is bad sugar. Glucose is good sugar, I would say. It's all a combination of fructose and glucose. And I don't think even sugar is a prime taste in the mouth. It's an acquired taste. Is that right, Jan? Is sugar a real taste in the mouth? I don't think it
Yes,
is.
it is. It's one of the four things: sweet, sour, salty, and bitter. It is not, and you're making up stuff.
I just made that up.
Yeah, I know.
I'm the stupid, I can
A
say
lot,
that.
a lot of the rest of this is made up.
Questions,
All right,
Charlie?
You're next.
Don't
Charlie, with the
criticize.
question.
Easy with the criticism.
Okay, Charlie, your hand is up. Ask your question.
The I just did a little research, and I found out that websites that Eating Well and the American Heart Association say that it's perfectly okay, and there is a range of between 9 and 17 teaspoons of sugar a day is perfectly fine to consume. And
Yes,
you come
so what's your
along,
question?
which is like 1 or 2 cans of Coke, and you come along and say total abstinence based on this anecdotal information is a scientific test.
So you want to take 1 can of Coke a day, is that right? A can of
Well,
Coke.
that's what the organizations, nationwide health organizations, do not have this alarmist language in there.
Can I answer the question?
Certainly.
Thank you. Okay, so a national organization like the American Heart Association, American Diabetic Association, American Nutrition Association. I mean, do they care if people get sick? Are they saying anything about candy in being sold or Coke being sold? No, they're part of the system. They're part of the conspiracy to make America sick again.
We got RFK.
Yeah, we got RFK now.
Yeah, we
America
don't need the
healthy
sugar
again.
lobby to tell us, that we can eat sugar. I mean, fine, sure, you can take their advice. You can eat, I think it's 9 for men and 6 for women. 6 teaspoons for women and 9 for men. I saw that on the American Heart Association. So what? They don't care about people getting sick. They want people to go to doctors because they're all doctors and they make money off of these people being sick. So it's a system. It's the system that's eating up people and making them sick, and they don't care. They just don't care. They couldn't care less.
Do you have any evidence to that effect?
Okay, yeah, right. I knew you were going to say that. Evidence. Well, as I was saying, Fat Chance. I mean, he treated, this doctor Lustig treated children with diabetes, or they were born with diabetes. So their mother had diabetes and they used the same blood. So he was born with diabetes. Now, did the mother drink Coke? Did the mother eat candy? Maybe she had no money. So she had to go to work and be a waitress in a restaurant and walk around a lot and have a lot of energy. So she drank Coke. I mean, the kid has diabetes. What are you going to do? What are you going to prove? And so tell the kid don't eat sugar? I mean, how can you tell kids not to eat sugar? So, and the efficacy, is it uh, is it ethical to have a study with people who eat no sugar and people eat sugar? I haven't seen that study yet. If you see it, please let me know. Thank you.
All right, Dan, I'd like to ask you, I'd like to ask you a question.
Yes?
I'd like to know what you think about Daniel Borlong and the Green Revolution.
All right. I'm glad you asked about Oral. I don't think they Dean or Robert or something. Anyways, he got a Nobel Peace Prize for that. It was not a green revolution. It was a chemical revolution. I mean, it was 1971.
Yes.
So lands were starting to get out of nutrition. Lands were being used. Were using NPK for maybe 50 years then, or not. Maybe they weren't. But anyway, so he went to Africa, and he said use
Mexico.
NPK, and it was a green revolution in India and China, and were poor countries where American corporations could sell their stuff and make a lot of money, and the market was made by Kissinger and Nixon, and so no, it wasn't a green revolution. It was a chemical revolution. They used a lot of chemicals, and chemicals only go so far. That's why a lot of people are going to regenerative agriculture now, because their lands are sick and tired of all the chemicals. And like Dan was saying, the chemicals kill animals, kill fish, kill wildlife, and that's not good.
Okay, Joseph Kopsik, you got your hand up. You want to ask your question?
Yeah, so if you recommend eating less sugar, do you think people should eat more meat or more vegetables or both?
Do what you want, do what you like. I mean, I'm not here to promote a diet for you, like be vegan or be a carnivore, the Atkins diet, all carnivore. Do what you want, but just stay away from added sugar, that's all. I mean, I eat a lot of fruits and vegetables and some meat, not a lot of meat, but fruits and vegetables are very important. Can somebody up here ask, I don't know, you.
Okay. Now, when it comes to drinking sodas on your
Louder, dude.
cane sugars, or actually, the ones made with cane sugar are much better than the high fructose corn syrup. When they started using high fructose corn syrup, that's when you really see the diabetes kick up. So there's some sugars that are much better. I'm not going to say good, but then there's the more processed you have, the worse it gets.
Yes.
And also on farming, are you go green or big red?
Go green. Was that Michigan?
No. John Deere? Yeah, John Deere versus.
Fuck John Deere. Well, actually,
And blue is New Holland.
New Holland, okay. But what were we saying?
They don't have any big red up here. They do in Indiana.
Cane. Yeah, cane. Like in Mexico, I think they use cane sugar in their
Well, I think
soda.
RC, because that's still cane sugar versus Coke, which is high fructose. corn
Right.
syrup.
So cane sugar is probably a little healthier than high fructose.
I am not sure what beet sugar calls it.
Cane sugar, beet sugar, and that's a combination of fructose and glucose. It's
Right.
It's a double molecule.
Right.
Fructose is a
Is it
double
good
molecule.
for you or bad for you?
Fructose is bad.
Everything's bad, all sugar's bad.
No, in oranges and apples, eat real fruit and you'll get fiber. Real fruit with sugar
Okay.
is good. Or real vegetables with sugar. Yes.
How nutritional are vegetables grown in hydroponics?
He wants to know
How, he wants to know how hydroponics is nutrition wise.
Since the soil is bad,
Yeah.
how is that compared to hydroponics?
Well, all right, so how bad, if you have bad soil, how bad is it or good is it for hydroponic, for growing only in water? I would say it's probably more nutritious for the food, more nutrition will be in the food with soil. It's kind of hydroponic. I'm not such a fan of hydroponic. I mean, I understand it's probably cheaper. I don't know, maybe it's more expensive than putting some soil in. I mean, soil, if you take care of the soil, if you grow things in it, if you give it some compost once in a while, then that's good. But if you abuse the soil, then it doesn't matter. I mean, then water.
Fertilizer in hydroponics?
Yeah, there's,
How do you like fish droppings and stuff like that?
yeah. Isn't there one on 35th and not Blue Island,
Bedford Park.
Bedford Park? Where? Yeah, Ogden and 35th. Right. Right. Yeah, the farm, part of the botanical garden.
At least it's safer though, right?
I guess so.
But I don't know how the nutrition value.
Right. It's probably less than soil, I would say. Yeah. I mean, you're gonna pay more for it probably, but it's worth it. Any questions online? Carl, you got a question?
I got one. Mm-hmm.
Okay, go ahead.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. You know, I guess one simple question, I kind of have two, is what do you know about why is I had a friend who had diabetes type 1 and also 10 other diseases, a lot related to the heart. But his doctor, said, okay, you've got diabetes, but I think he encouraged him to drink Diet Coke, and have you seen this? Like you'll see it in the diabetes section of the pharmacy, a lot of, it seems like sugar-free candy. But then I've heard studies that say diet-free or Diet Coke and diet is, I know it makes you equally fat. I heard a study, and that the brain thinks it's candy, so it processes it
Okay.
just as bad. So tell me what you know about that.
I don't know too much, but I think Diet Cokes, Diet RC, Diet Pepsi, it uses sugar. I think there's sugar in it. Maybe not. Maybe I'm wrong. But isn't it sweet? I think it is.
I think it was, yeah, it is sweet. And I think it was made like by Monsanto or, Rumsfeld, when he was at worked in this artificial sugar area, and that makes me think about whether it's Department of Defense connected too, but and also genetically modified type things that, that are man-made, that I think it does taste sweet, but I think science and the lobby has kind of covered up that it may be as bad for you or worse. I think I've heard doctors say actually regular Coke is better than Diet Coke for you. And so I think that'd be an interesting analysis for you to research.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Ernie, I noticed you had your hand up. Did you want to say anything? Unmute,
Yeah.
Ernie.
I have a question. Am I on? Can you hear me?
Yes,
Can you hear me? Dan?
Yes, we hear you.
yes, we hear you.
Yes.
Yeah, Dan.
Go ahead,
I'm
Ernie.
still.
Go ahead. Yeah.
I'm a little confused, Dan. You partially answered the question. The difference between sucrose, fructose, and glucose. Now, I always thought it was good to to eat fruit because that's got a lot, but that's got a lot of sugar in it. But that, in my understanding, that's fructose, right?
It's
Okay,
fructose, but it has fiber, which mitigates
Okay.
the fructose.
Okay, so the fructose itself is not good, but it's the fiber that makes it good and the vitamins.
Right. Right.
Yeah, okay. Well, glucose. Now you said glucose is okay. Where do we get glucose? How do we get glucose?
It's in many foods, like fruits and vegetables. They go together. Usually they go together. There's a combination of glucose and fructose in each plant.
And how does this relate
Grape-
to carbohydrates? My
is a
doctor said I should have less I was pre-diabetic, and she said eat less carbohydrates.
Mm.
And
So
when
that's-
you look at the side of a
Yes.
can, when you look at the side of a can, under carbohydrates, it breaks it down into different sugars. And can you explain that a little further?
A little bit. Well, first of all, carbon is not like carbon in the air. There's carbon in the air, but the carbon is drawn into the earth, into the soil by plants. There's a famous NOAA, National Atmospheric and
National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Administration.
right, that's it. And they have a famous video I was going to show, and it shows that in like January, February, there's a lot of CO2 over the northern hemisphere, over North America, Europe, and Russia, Siberia, and then well, there's a lot in May and June because the farmers are plowing in the northern hemisphere, so they're letting carbon come out of the ground. This is very important, actually. It's a terrible habit that farmers have because they let carbon dioxide out of the soil into the air, and that isn't good. Anyway, so by May and June, July, August, the plants are drawing the carbon dioxide into themselves, putting it in the soil. So they're taking carbon dioxide out of the air, putting it in the soil, and this is a good thing. And then they die in November, December, and then the CO2 goes back into the air. But what was your question?
Okay, I think he answered. All right, Carl, and then we'll go to Vicky. Carl, go ahead.
Thanks.
Carl.
Thanks. Just a quick comment. Dan, earlier you mentioned Cuba and you wondered if they have made any advances with Parkinson's. I didn't know about that, but I've looked around online and I put a couple of links in the chat that suggest they really have. They've made some claims they cured it. They have this stereotaxic surgery, minimally invasive surgery. And so that sounds really promising to me, and you might want to check it out. And I think it does speak to the importance of human solidarity as a principle and foundational commitment of the Cuban Revolution. So I'm glad you mentioned that and got me thinking about it.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, brother. That's my
Vicky,
brother.
Vicky, you got a question? Go ahead.
Yeah, when Ellen was talking about diet drinks, I think there's a question there of our aspartame and saccharin okay for you? And then there's another term, glycemic index, which I think has to do with the speed at which these sugars enter your bloodstream. So eating an apple is fine, as you said, there's the fiber, there's the pulp. But apple juice, it's just a lot of sugar hitting you at once.
Right.
So you want something slower that won't create cravings and won't spike your blood sugar, right?
Right. So the aspartame and what was the other one?
Saccharin.
Aspartame and saccharin. I would say they're probably combinations of glucose and fructose. They're probably sucrose. I mean, those chemists don't know what they're doing. They don't care what they do. They don't care if they make people sick. So they do whatever their bosses tell them to do. And so they put a little glucose, a little sucrose, put it in a package and sell it to restaurants all over the world. Yay! Economic.
Well, they do have categories for sugars, but aspartame and saccharin do not have calories, supposedly, do not have carbohydrates.
But
I
do
mean,
they-
they're not
my
labeled
question-
as sugars.
My question would be, do they have fructose and glucose or just fructose?
No,
you
they
answer
shouldn't.
that,
They
I would-
shouldn't. The labels don't indicate that.
Right, and they're probably not going to. I've seen that sugar,
Sugar
Yeah.
substitutes.
no, I've seen that sugar description on the Sugar Association website. It's a bunch of baloney. I mean, they say this is used for, canned vegetables, and this is used for canned vegetables, and this is used for canned vegetables, and this is used for canned fruits. I mean, they don't lie, but they're not exactly telling the truth. That half of that stuff makes people sick, and it makes makes doctors rich. The
One
medicine-
more thing, sorry, on the labels is I'm told that something say it's sugar-free, but then there's a category for sugar alcohols, which are sugars.
Yeah, right. Well,
So they're
that's
not
like saying
sugar-free.
diet- The diet thing is sugar-free. Maybe high fructose corn syrup isn't considered sugar in the FDA or with the EPA. And the people in the FDA all work for Monsanto and the sugar companies. So who knows? Somebody else have a question?
All right, Charlie, I know you're itching again. Go ahead. Charlie, your
Yeah.
hand's up. Go ahead.
I just was wondering if, Dan, you knew the definition of junk science. And I'm often wondering why, to become a doctor, you have to go to 12 years of academics classroom, college, and then go internship. And this doctor, I don't understand it. He wouldn't pay any attention to you. I gotta wonder why did he do that? Why wouldn't he pay attention to you?
Because I'm his patient. It goes against everything you learned in medical school. He doesn't think like I try to think, like Parkinson's is diabetes. It's too simple for him. It's too easy. And he just doesn't want to think that way. It's a way of thinking. I think, Charlie, you're right. It's a way
So
of
he's a
thinking.
simpleton. You're smarter than him.
Yeah, well, he's a highly educated simpleton,
Just like Charlie.
highly educated. He went to 12 years of college and residency and all that stuff. Good for him.
All right, we'll go to Mike and then we'll go to Joe and then Emily. All right, Mike. All right, two-part question loud, Mike.
Okay, all right, since we have an educated core up there, group, I've been using stevia for the last 10 years. Is that okay?
Let me see, give me one of those.
Don't go on me.
Is that your total?
That was part one.
Part two.
So how does everybody feel about stevia? I've been putting it in my green. Stevia? It tastes sweet, but you put it in with green tea and what do you mean stevia is not good? It's not artificial, it comes off a tree. I did all my research on sugar substitutes. It's in a packet.
It's not off the tree.
Well, they got the juices, they granulated it. No, it's only pure stevia. No, all they did processing wise is it's not chemicals, it's natural. No, they don't. You gotta, I think I heard somewhere where anything that I play one on Zoom. So my understanding is that if it's over 1% of the right, if if a chemical is over 1% of the product, wait, hold on, let me just finish. If a product, if they have an ingredient that is over 1% of any product you eat, if you gotta list it as one of the chemicals.
I saw a video on YouTube. They took a cane sugar or something, and it's 24 hours, and they put it into a building. 24 hours later, 24 hours later, it came out like crystal, bags of like this. So 24 hours it takes to process it.
See, cane sugar comes out as crystals. Well, there's always some kind of processing. Okay, anyway, I've been using stevia for 10 years with green tea because I think I can trust those two products. And I really don't care what I drink anymore as long as it's healthy. Quit stevia. I researched it, and it's the most healthy sweetener, the most natural sweetener.
all right.
Oh, wait, okay, all right. I know, honey, but I feel bad because a bee spends its whole life making 1 teaspoon of honey. Like, damn. Okay, well, whatever. I'm gonna go. Maybe I'll go to honey. Okay, here's my second part question.
All right.
Can I? Okay, my second
Go
part
ahead, give your second part.
is okay. So we've been talking a lot about, and my family is farmers. So I ran an actual red machine that plowed fields. So I've been in the dirt, in the mud with the plowshares. Okay, so shears. Anyway, it's interesting that we're talking a lot about sugar, but we haven't even talked about pesticides or what's the other side? Fungus, herbicides. We haven't even went into that, and that's the reason that Europe thinks we have a bunch of junk we eat. One of the reasons we haven't talked about hydrogenated products like margarine and all the stuff that goes in the breads. That's a whole nother issue with food. We haven't talked about hormones and antibiotics.
And then, of course, fluoridated water.
Okay. We haven't talked about hormones and antibiotics. Another reason Europe doesn't touch American garbage.
Okay, sit down.
Sit down, okay.
Sit down and shut up.
Yeah, because we got 2 questions left. We got Joseph and we got Ellen, and we're going to rebuttals.
Pesticides are bad. I mean, they're poison, so they spray it over a whole field. Hey, Mike, I'm talking about it.
What?
So I said they spray a whole field of pesticide, and then they expect the pesticide to just disappear like thin air. But it goes into the plants. It goes into the plants, then it comes to America from Mexico, and we eat it. And it's sick, and it's not healthy.
You're talking about pesticides and herbicides.
Yeah, herbicide and fungicide and all the sides, all the killing.
It's a forever color.
Right. So we'll eat it when it comes from Mexico. So that's bad. So I have some blue sky bokashi sample, not for resale. I'll give it to anybody who wants to use it for their garden. Free. It's a sample. I got it from Matt Powers.
Okay.
Yeah. And I have some nutraceutical facts company. This is lion's mane mushrooms extract. So it's like high tech, fancy, like a Porsche. Instead of a Porsche car, you got Porsche fertilizer for your field in little packets, highly hydrogenated packets.
Okay.
But I mean, this is a new capitalism. These are capitalists making money at
We
this.
still got 2 more questions. Joseph, go ahead. Joseph. ahead.
Yeah, before I ask my question, I just want to say stevia makes me feel itchy and dehydrated. So if it makes you feel that way, quit. If it doesn't, continue, but make sure your stevia doesn't have erythritol in it, because that's something I looked up that can kill you if you take it. And by the way, just as a word of caution against stevia, there are more plants that'll kill you than animals that will kill you. I don't know how if that means much, but my question is, um, I agree with your points about sugar, but if we're going to have people eating more meat and more vegetables as a response, do you have any ideas on how to make sure we don't waste water, or how make water go to the right places for farming these things?
Well, that's a good question. You could go to your local farmer and like the one in Skokie that I go to, the Talking Farm. They don't have any ponds. It's very flat land. So I'm going to suggest to them to dig a hole and make a little pond, make a little shallow puddle for the water to accumulate. I mean, water is very valuable in farming, as you might know. They have like 2 acres on Howard Avenue by the Amazon building. Right next to the Amazon building, there's a farm, an urban farm. I mean, water is very important. Water is very important. I mean, without water, plants die, people die. I would say go to a farmer's market and ask about water. Ask your local farmer how much water they have, how many ponds they have. And if they don't have a pond, say, get a pond, get a pond. Right now.
Okay, it's our last question. It'll be Ellen Corley, then we'll go to rebuttals. Ellen, go ahead.
Yeah,
Unmute,
thank
Ellen,
you.
Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, I was looking up Parkinson's and, you know, my hypothesis is Parkinson's cured by anticonvulsant disorders, because I had epilepsy a little bit as a child and then got it again, got trigeminal neuralgia. And my understanding was a lot of these are about the myelin of your neurons, but you know, that are related to sugar, I guess. But
you sound like an American doctor. I mean, it's nothing about what you're drinking 5 Cokes a day. I mean, that has nothing to do with
yeah.
it.
But no, but just for your sake, I would go to a general doctor or in a diet, you know, do the research broader, not just kind of discrediting the doctor who is a neurologist, you know, and he probably doesn't know anything about this is the way specialists are, that they're experts in Parkinson's and neuro.
Ellen Corley,
So the question was, well, I know, have you ever tried? I remember when I asked you this and you said you had a prescription that the neurologist gave you. Have you ever tried it? You know, what the neurologist prescribed for Parkinson's?
Yes, I did. And it just didn't work. Didn't work. So I might take three of them a day, you know, and then they'll stop shaking. I know it bothers people.
Gabapentin, and you know, if you just do a simple Google search, there's a lot of treatments, and it makes sense. I mean, I don't think all pharmaceuticals and treatments are, you know, are worth
95%.
So it is worth, you know, I know I had also amitriptyline can help, and so look at neurological disorders for what they, you know, it's different than diabetes.
Okay. Thank you for your rapt attention.
Okay, let's go to rebuttals now, and you'll get the first rebuttal, okay? I'll give everybody about 4 to 4 minutes or so. No, we're not gonna collect. We're not gonna collect. We're waiving it tonight. We'll waive it tonight. All right, we're ready for questions, so go ahead.
Tobacco is a product of the New World. And from what I understand, the Indians did not get addicted to tobacco. But once you start putting sugar in tobacco and making cigarettes with sugar in them, then people become addicted. And it's the sugar in the tobacco that causes the addiction and not the tobacco itself. I think that's a theory, and I read that, but I don't remember where, and I wouldn't stand by it unless I investigated it further. But back in the old days when I was only 50, my very first protest that I went to with my friends was in Decatur, Illinois. At the Staley, yeah, we went to the Staley factory because the sugar workers were getting sick, and there were a lot of chemicals involved in what they were doing, and the production of sugar was making the workers really ill, and not only that, their pay was low, and they were on strike, and they had been locked out. And do you remember this, Mike?
All I remember is that it's been a food capital of the world. But my year,
Oh, let's see, what is this? 23, 2025. I would say it has to be probably, yeah, it was about, okay, it was about 35 years ago.
they made a corn syrup there for high fructose.
Oh, it wasn't that late. But anyway,
There were a lot of steel strikes.
well, this was a sugar strike, and it was very interesting to me because it was really my very first experience as a bona fide activist, but I was already probably about 50. So I just thought it was interesting that this came up about sugar, and one of my first experiences was being out there defending sugar workers who were getting sick from all of the chemicals that went into sugar. And I had it pictured as you take the sugar cane or the sugar beets and you soak it, and then you boil it down, and I didn't realize there were any chemicals involved. Okay, and so that's what I wanted to say about cigarettes, and it's what I wanted to say about Staley. And then I had one other story. Mahatma Gandhi's grandson was down at the Chicago Temple giving a speech and talking about his granddad, who was Mahatma Gandhi. And he said that one day a family brought their child to Gandhi because their child would not eat anything but candy. They couldn't get the child to eat a regular meal. He would just go for, and of course the child was getting really, really sick because that's the only thing he would eat. So they took him to Gandhi to ask what to do. And Gandhi said, well, bring him back in 2 weeks. And the family thought, well, foo, we came to get help now. But they did bring the kid back in 2 weeks. And Gandhi had abstained from candy himself for 2 weeks. And he said, I did not want to ask this child to do something that I wouldn't do. And he said, so I have not eaten any candy for 2 weeks. And he turned to the child and he says, if I can do it, you can do it. And that was the way he got the child to stop eating only candy and to start moving into regular meals.
You talking those chemicals and making
Yeah, I think they
soybeans?
All right, let's move on.
at the stage.
All right, Joe, we'll get you next after Mike. Just a minute.
Okay, Tim's back. All right. Did somebody want to go on that first? I'm trying to collect my thoughts. I
All
forgot.
right, well, Joe, if you want to go next, go ahead. Joe?
Yeah, sure, I'm ready. Okay, thanks for the presentation, Daniel. You're absolutely correct on subsidies, and you're correct that libertarians should be in favor of eliminating subsidies. I don't know if we want to eliminate them completely or just tell farmers to do it right. Maybe you can answer that if you like. I think of grain subsidies as indirect grain alcohol subsidies. I was going to do a presentation a lot like this, but health is really not my strong suit. So I'm glad you did this, and I would have called it something like how the hoarding of grain led to diabetes, alcoholism, and slavery. I read about a tenth of sugar blues, and it is talked about how how slaves were brought to the New World with the intent to work them on sugar farms. So that's definitely a problem. There's so, um, and I also wanted to note or ask everyone to consider the possibility that we're kind of being worked, like the fact that the government subsidizes agriculture or food at all is kind of evidence that we're worked in, or like as like with permanent promises of food and alcohol as a reward, and those things numb us, but they keep us satisfied, but they also keep us fat. So it's like, well, now I have an excuse to exercise or work more, and then you work your fingers to the bone, develop alcohol to, deal with the pain of it. um, this was touched on briefly. Maybe Daniel or Andrew could enlighten us about this a little bit more. I read in Sugar Blues that breads break down into glucose, and in Sugar Blues it says that sugar breaks down into alcohol. Vicky mentioned sugar alcohol, so I'm wondering if I don't know if all sugar breaks down into alcohol, but I do know that like breads, pizzas, pastas break down into sugar and starch. I'm just wondering how much of that ends up as actual alcohol, and if it does, most of it, then it's almost like diabetes or sugar addiction is alcoholism, or we need to ask ourselves whether it is. So I ate way too much sugar in early 2015, and I just wanted to eat nothing but green beans for a while, but I'm kind of pigging out again these days. But I do recommend like low carb diets, keto diet. Look into the benefits of the carnivore diet. Look up a guy named Dr. Robert Gundry. He says that you should eat fruit, but don't juice it. Don't get excessive fruit. He says that excessive fruit is as bad as chocolate and candy. And don't add sugar to your fruit, because sugar and vitamin C are engaged with the brain by the same receptors. So it makes it more difficult to absorb vitamin C if you have a lot of sugar in your system. So no adding sugar to the smoothies if you're having smoothies. And also, I'm glad people talked a little bit about artificial sugars. Aspartame is genetically modified E. coli bacteria's excretions. It's basically what happens when crap takes a crap on a bacterial level, and we're putting that in our drinks and food and calling that sugar. That's what aspartame is. People tried to make that illegal about 45 years ago. Donald Rumsfeld stopped them. He was from Illinois, by the way. And we need to talk about sucralose is a sweetener, and I've read that it's chemically similar to chlorine. Obviously, that doesn't make it chlorine. It doesn't make it toxic, but we need to be able to talk about these things. It's a free speech forum. Charlie was asking about causality. I think the fact that, okay, so fat is blamed for diabetes, but you can't have diabetes develop without the presence of sugar. So sugar is the main cause. Fat may be a contributing cause, but as Andrew mentioned, fat and meat prevents a sugar spike. So I think we need to be eating more meat and vegetables. We need to get rid of our fear of cholesterol, because you need cholesterol to build your cell walls, and that is a defense of this of the outside of the cell. So there's good cholesterol and bad. And to note to Charlie, this is not practicing medicine when Daniel and all the rest of us compare notes about what we think we know about nutrition. If it is, then your support of vaccines is also practicing medicine. Look into the Ninth Amendment. We have a right to not have our freedoms converted into a license that we have to pay the government for. States can choose not to license doctors if they want to. And we're seeing a lot of damage between COVID death protocols and bad calls about nutrition and the food pyramid. And the millions of people with diabetes is evidence of the things that Daniel is saying. So thanks for a great presentation.
Okay, Mike, go ahead.
Okay.
Then we'll do Ellen.
All right. Like I said, I did, my family's farmers. Corn, soybeans, from way back, a couple of centuries ago. Corn, soybeans, hay, wheat, pork, beef, generally. Anyway, what's amazing about sugar? It's in like everything. It's like in all your foods. It's in everything. So it's like that's a big product. Um, here's kind of a disgusting statistic, Ernie. Anyway, do you realize that almost half of our corn product goes in the gas tanks? It's burned as ethanol fuel. So
Yes.
it's kind of creepy. It's food. Did you know that, Dan?
Yeah, 30% is high fructose corn.
Yeah, it's food for your car.
Food for your car. All right. Well, that's just a fun fact. Anyway, one rule of thumb that I kind of remember from talking about food and watching these shows is that, Dan, the less ingredients in a food product, the better.
Right.
So you should look at the back, see where it's made. If it's made in China, don't buy it. But, food. Okay, so, but if you look at the ingredients, I'm going to have to check the 1% rule. But the less amount of ingredients in any product. So next time you go to Jewel's, wherever you go, Walmart's, wherever, and you're buying food, your mom, go, okay, I want to see how many ingredients. What's disgusting is artificial non-dairy creamers. There's like 20 ingredients in that stuff. Like, oh my God, what the hell did they put in there? But so does that hold true, Dan? The less ingredients a product has, the better it
Yeah, I
is.
think so, but you're going in the center of the floor. I say stay on the outside.
Right, the vegetables and the dairy, meat. You know what? You know what my doctor said to me a couple months ago?
No, what?
He said, "Hey, bitch, no more red meat for you."
That's bullshit.
Why is that bullshit?
Because meat.
He said, "Get used to the Mediterranean diet." And I did the happy Trump dance. And I go, that sounds pretty cool, Mediterranean diet, right, Tim? But it sucks. It's like fish and chicken, and that's it. Nuts and berries. Anyway, what were you going to say, Dan? No, he said, no more red meat. And I said, no pork? And pork?
White meat.
No, it's red.
Okay.
You guys been listening to too many commercials. Pork and beef and lamb are red meats. Sorry, bitches. I shouldn't say that, but anyway. But Dan, your meats, your healthy meats you're talking about on the outside of the supermarket, guess what they're eating? Corn and soybeans with all the chemicals in it.
Go to a farmer's market. You pay a lot.
That's why they go with grass-fed, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, well,
All right.
I don't have grass-fed money.
Okay, let's move on, Ellen. Let's move on. Ellen, Carla, you're next.
Am I done?
Yes. Ellen, you're next.
Okay, well, is it okay if I refer to anything related to a
You
vaccine,
hear the
or
wisdom about,
I'm just asking for permission to
I
use
would- I
the
would-
vaccine? No?
the reason is, Ellen, I don't want to get caught up on
Okay.
YouTube.
All right, well,
And
then I
please,
won't. I'll
just keep
dance
it,
around it. I'll dance
with
around
it.
it. Okay. Okay, thank you. I appreciate what Joe said about freedom of speech, and it is particularly, it's like there's good news and bad news. There's progress in that Bobby Kennedy has gotten elected or got confirmed, and Tulsi Gabbard, and just today there will no longer be federal funding of a school that requires a mandate regarding that V thing. And you can't help noticing that 20% of people are taking that V thing now, and there's a lot of documentation regarding the dangers because of something I learned actually at the house, Vicky was there, where there was a neurologist, a guy, an expert in microbiology that teaches at the Great Lakes Naval Academy, who had approved Fauci's grants in the 90s, you know, for AIDS. And, you know, when Fauci was trying to develop, you know, vaccines for AIDS. And the thing that that microbiologist told me was that he was concerned about the S protein, which is called a spike protein, which is manufactured, you know, this mRNA spike protein is what all the science. I listened to a 2-hour thing on Dr. John Campbell, who has done a wonderful job for the last 5 years of talking about this without using that V word and getting thrown off of YouTube, which is critically important. What did I learn? I heard Steve Bannon last night saying that he'd been thrown off the whole time, as Bobby Kennedy was, and Naomi Wolf, and I was thrown off of things, never permanently, but they do still remove these things from YouTube, even when I've saved them in my blog. There's such a danger for, you have to wonder who is behind the YouTube policy of removing these things. And as I was just looking at this book about Lab 257, about the disturbing story of government secret germ laboratory, speaking specifically about Plum Island and how the biological warfare was brought into this island, that now we have Lyme disease. And one thing I loved hearing Bobby Kennedy talking to the girl who had Lyme disease, writing about this. One of my best friends has Lyme disease, and I've seen a lot of documentaries on it. And, they say there's no cure, it comes and goes. It's like a lot of these things. And so why isn't there a cure, for these things? Well, because if the scientists aren't allowed to talk about it, why not? It is such a scary time, but it was a scary time watching the Democrats try to kill Bobby Kennedy's ability to be confirmed. He had to say, I love vaccines, but what he's did today is say you can't mandate them. And that is a really important progress. I'm with a group that I encourage people to join now, called Truth Action Project. We meet at 7 o'clock on Tuesdays Central Time, and they've mainly now pushing the research. They were with 9/11 Truth, then they went for vaccine mandate, truth or whatever. That group now is really pushing something regarding these chemtrail poisons that drop down, and it's aluminum. They've got all the things in it. They found it equally in vaccinated and unvaccinated people, but it's connected to this kind of transhumanism experimentation. I remember when Ted Arunda was still coming here, and he has some actually very interesting videos on his website, Tarunda, on Rumble. You can't, because all of the best research, even of our conspiracy theorists that Charlie did let talk about this. I don't know how he was able to, but Jim Fetzer is on Rumble. But really the best science is Rumble, because it's not censored. But this people should look at National American Renaissance Movement, for more on this subject, because the way we are organizing Truth Action Project is to really organize ourselves around this issue. And I think that's the spirit of the free speech, is we're identifying threats. And actually, I met some fascinating people that have been part of the truth movement regarding 9/11 for a long time out of California. And one gave me so much hope. He said that we're at the end of something called the fourth turning. This is a theory of generations, and that our generation is in a stage of chaos. And but there's going to be hope, really, as in 2030, I guess, when this generation is going to die out, and eventually it will be legal to talk about things again, maybe. But that the theory is that there's generational cycles where a kind of, there's a lot of, I woke up basically at the beginning of the pandemic when Andy Anderson brought me this book on HIV. Peter, this expert who was put down for saying that, there's no real thing as an HIV virus. And it's not that he's saying people weren't dying, but it's, we needed to be able to talk about the question. And that's where really the best science is, be open-minded, to be willing to look at, what is the effect of sugar. And I know there is a connection at the microbiological area between, a virus and a single cell parasite and whatever it is. That's what Robert Malone speculates is what we're dealing with. It's but what is the microbiology of this stuff? It does cling to the epithelial cells. It does break them down, and it clings to the nerve cells. It clings to the brain cells. It clings to the ovaries and the testicles, and it's causing problems and fertility rates and things. And so all of these things are related, but the key hypothesis that nobody's allowed to test or form, at least on YouTube, is did their government, the Department of Defense or the Chinese government, Wuhan, is this biological warfare? That's what Alex Jones said in 2020, January 2020. Is biological warfare? We know it's real. It was put onto sugar in Cuba and sent to Russia to kill them. So we think it's okay to do biological, chemical, nuclear warfare if it's for someone else, but we're not allowed to talk about it. A special forces or FBI or CIA aren't allowed to talk about that. And so that's the key, is to get that fixed. Okay, thank you.
All right. You want to go ahead, and then I'll get Charlie after you.
Oh, no.
Just take your time.
I was watching Michael Moore, which I hardly ever do. But anyway, he was being interviewed, and someone said, if you were elected president, what is the first thing you would do? And he said, I would make high fructose corn syrup illegal. Look what it did to me.
Okay.
Who said that?
Charlie, you're next.
Who said that?
Michael Moore.
Michael Moore.
Oh, okay.
His diet has completely changed, but he's not in good shape, and he wasn't then.
Okay, Charlie, go ahead.
Oh, I got 5 things I'll go over rather quickly. Number 1, in general, I would like to say there is no such thing as alternative medicine. In the world, there is one body of truth that is accepted in science as truth. There are not 2 parallel things which are regarded as being accurate and valid. So anybody who maintains that there is 2 versions of truth, that's like the Trump in the early, they said, well, we have alternative facts. Do you actually accept the fact, the belief that there can be 2 sets of facts? And the media was, as a matter of fact, laughing about it. It was a lame attempt by the Trump administration to put a spin on things. Nevertheless, there's one body of medicine accepted as acceptable medical practices, as established by the Medical Association, academic things and practitioners, and they can't be discounted. Number 2, I think you folks need a little bit of a study here of what constitutes science. In order to conduct an experiment, you have to isolate variables, have controlling situations, a controlled situation, and you have to keep in mind that I've heard this over and over here tonight, that somehow correlation is accepted as causality. Now, what do I mean by that? If you do absolutely nothing, you have an illness. Let's say you get sick. If you do absolutely nothing, as much as 95% of the time, the illness will go away within 5 days.
Are you a medical doctor,
Now,
Charlie?
during that period, I'm talking about science.
Medical.
If you don't mind, this is science. Now, if you get sick,
Medical
at
school.
the top of your head every day 3 times. At the end of 5 days, the illness will go away. Now, according to legitimate science, is that an established cure for the illness that you had? Tapping the top of your head? Absolutely not. You have to isolate variables longitudinally. We heard a study. This guy actually thought it was valid that he stopped doing one thing, and at the end of 5 years, he said, see the results. Were there no extraneous variables during that 5-year period? I also heard something here that I will call the longitudinal study of 2 brothers. I'm sorry, that's not a scientific established truth. Anyhow, bring a brush up on your science. Come on. Let's see what else we got here. Oh, I also did some research in another area. There is legally no such thing as medical freedom, as alluded to here. Oh, we're just discussing. No, there is no such concept legally been established under case law or by legislative law as medical freedom. Simply by virtue of the fact that the practitioner, it is an area which can bring about, generate significant harm to people, and is something the state regulates. That's why people are put in jail, as was the fellow who came to the college complexes, was put in jail for a year for violating the law. Also regarding free speech. Speech is no right is exercised in the absolute. If what you say is potentially harmful to other people, it is not free. It should not be allowed. Don't you understand the concept of of claiming fire in a theater when there is none? No, your speech, what you say regarding health or your advice given to people is very much controlled speech, as well it should be, because people say things that are inaccurate, which results in harm to people. Therefore, yes, and I'm very glad that the government does so. I have no problem with that whatsoever. One other thing is that there's some action there that mandates of the government. If you think people at work, they have a workplace. Do you think some employee can come to work and do no standard precautions and enter the workplace? Typhoid Mary wants to come back to work. Or Typhoid Mary is sitting at the table across from you tonight, who has taken no precautions regarding the situation we have here in the United States. Well, if you think that's okay, I'm not so. And finally, the gentleman here spoke a little bit about farming. And he said there's all sorts of aerobic microorganisms in the soil. Well, the best thing for an aerobic microorganism is exposure to the air. And that would mean plowing the fields in the traditional fashion, which I believe he opposes. Well, I don't understand. The one thing you have to watch out is that if you give a speech at the college, please avoid internal contradictions. Anyhow, thank you very much. See you next week when we're going to be talking about the U.S. national character, I believe. Thank you.
Okay, you want to give your final rebuttal?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay, Charlie.
All right, Charlie.
Yes, plowing does let oxygen into the soil, but there's another way to get oxygen in the soil. You can make holes, spaces in the soil for the oxygen to go and the water to go at the same time. And if the way to do that, to make spaces in the soil very difficult, is to not plow, to let the microorganisms, the fungus and bacteria live, and they will make places in the soil with the plants. If you plant cover crops, I know, Charlie, you probably never heard of a cover crop, but cover crops are plants like grasses. Lana, sit down. They're plants and grasses that feed the microorganisms in the soil, and then the microorganisms eat the exudates, which are the sugars that the plants make, and the roots throw it out, throw the sugar out to the microorganisms, and they symbiosis. It's called symbiosis, where they live in the soil. It's a very unique thing, and plowing destroys that. Plowing and tilling kills the microorganisms. It makes the soil dead. I know it's counterintuitive and it's against your way of thinking, but I'm sorry, that's the truth. And ask any no-till farmer what they did with their till equipment. They threw it, they sold it and made a lot of money. And then they bought planters that can go through the compost, and they cut sideways. They cut the land, they cut the soil in a little sliver, and they put the seed in, and then they cover it, and that's all in one operation. So they cut out all the plowing, and that saves gasoline, and it saves carbon dioxide staying in the soil all year round instead of in the air. All right, I hope I buried that subject. Good. Number two, the cures for a lot of diseases are don't eat sugar. Just don't eat added sugar. And I know, Charlie, you love your pop, you love your root beer, you love your crackers and sweet things. I understand that. It's a way of thinking. It's not just a way of sticking stuff in your stomach. It's a way of thinking. You share things with it at the park, at your meeting, with your union. You all eat sweet things, and it's a great fun. Well, if you change, let me know. Thank you. Number three, sugar is needed by the body. Photosynthesis makes sugar in plants. Sorry to say that, but the sun and water, C6H12O6, that's sugar, baby. And you know what? Plants make it. Plants make it. So it's in corn, wheat, barley, oats. Every kind of grass, every kind of vegetable is sweet because photosynthesis is doing its thing. It's called making sugar. And you know what? We eat that sugar. And you know what? The body likes it. But if there's too much sugar, it gets sick. And I know you're not going to like this, but when I quit sugar, when I quit eating added sugar, my brain fog disappeared. I know that's neither here nor there. It's a story one person told me, Daniel Weinberg from Chicago. And there might be 1 million people like you who don't quit sugar and like sugar, and you're not going to quit sugar no matter what because you like your sugar. Well, good for you. I don't like sugar. And I think why is sugar in CVS and Walgreens? Is it a conspiracy by the sugar companies to make people stupid, to make people like little sheeple? It's to keep people conservative like you, Charlie. They don't want to be radical. They don't want communists around, socialists, woke people, woke. And they don't want people to be Democrats. They want them to be Republicans, just like Musk. Yay, Musk, the new dictator. And in the government, and you say the government? Okay, let's say the government of Nazis. Let's see. They wanted Jews, you know, Jews can't marry other non-Jews. Jews can't go to work. Jews have to give all their money to the government. So that was a law. So I guess since the government made that law, it's okay. No problem. Wow, yeah, the government made it. Good law. Well, when the government takes away everything, like the EPA and CFTC and the FDA and the EPA, when the government does that, that's okay, because it's the government. So fine, we'll do that. And you know, when they take Jews to the camps again, that's fine. That's okay. We'll do that. The government's doing it. Yay, government. We're all for government. Government workers, yay, united. Good. You're a union of government workers. Good. The government sucks. Fuck the government. Thank you.
All right. Again, as a side note, this isn't the first time that foods have come into controversy. In the 1500s, with the introduction of coffee, it started. It was wanting to be banned in England because it was going to start revolutionary activities. It kept people up and started getting people to think a little bit more. And it even got so bad for a while that they were trying to ban it in some countries, but people wouldn't put up with it. Even the Pope at one of the things blessed coffee. Pope Clement VIII. This Satan's brew is so delicious, it's a pity to let the infidels have exclusive use of it. No, we shall baptize it, truly call it a Christian beverage. So with that, I'm going to say good night, everybody. I'm glad everybody came. Thank you guys for coming in on Zoom. And with that, we're going to have a night. We'll adjourn the college for tonight. And thanks everybody again for coming. Hopefully you can be here in person, but if you can't, please join us again on Zoom. Take care, everyone. Have a good night.
Charlie, who was put in jail for speaking